that in the lesson that we send out. I started on this
Everybody
one.
needs that line.
And Bruce does a good job of cooperating with it. I appreciate it on there. Interesting lesson for today. There's a lot of good information. There's a lot that we don't have to go into great detail on, but today's scriptures, they cover 7 chapters in Exodus for today. 7 chapters. Now, obviously, we're not going to read all of them. I'm going to skip around and I'm going to focus on the verses that contain instructions for the building of the Ark of the Covenant and for the tabernacle. So that's what we're going to focus on, these 2. In Exodus 25, the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give." These are the offerings. Is that a kid screaming out there?
Oh, yes.
I hope it ain't ours.
That's what I was hoping.
They ain't got
They're looking for YouTube. Okay, now he says, bring me remember, they're out there, they're still at the bottom of Mount Sinai, the Israelites in their Exodus. And now he's saying, have the people bring me this stuff. These are the offerings you are to receive from them: gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen, goat hair, ram skin dyed red, and another type of durable leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted in the ephod and the breastplate. That's a lot of stuff. I'm going to break it down for you because there's some stuff that we need to learn and be aware of. Did you notice that God first specified gold, silver, and bronze? That was the first thing he specified. Have them bring me this. Is there any special meaning in these 3? Gold, silver, and bronze. Gold is symbolic of God's kingship, His glory, His holiness. Gold. That's His number one thing. Gold. Silver often represents redemption in the Bible. How about Judas? What did he throw back at the feet of the priest?
Silver.
30 shekels of silver. Yeah, and there's other places in the Bible scriptures where we read last week a lot of these laws and they got boring. There's so many of them. And a lot of them you repay with so much silver. Repayment. Silver seems to represent that area, and there gold is symbolic of God. Then there's bronze. It's often associated with judgment and punishment. Didn't really find the scriptures that offset that. But gold, silver. Is there anything else that comes to mind when you hear these 3?
The Olympics.
Huh?
The Olympics.
Olympics, exactly.
Very good.
Who gets the top number 1?
Gold.
Gold, yeah. God is gold. He is number 1. He is the top. There is no other higher than gold, than silver and bronze. Now, that's he specified. Now bring me these 3, and then he started talking about some other things. But I added one, copper, just so you'll know. There's no particular biblical meaning, but they used to make items like utensils, helmets, spears, and stuff because it's soft to work with, and it wasn't expensive, and they made a lot of stuff with that. A lot of the utensils, the pots are made out of bronze, but it's also the same with brass. Sometimes it's brass, sometimes it's bronze on there. So there's your gold, silver, and bronze. So the Olympics got from the Bible, didn't they? Next listed was to bring yarn and fine linen, but he specified 3 colors: blue, purple, and scarlet, yarn and fine linen. Is there anything special meaning about these 3? Colors often have symbolic meaning from the Bible. Red or scarlet. You think about the blood of the Lamb. Red, scarlet. The absolute gospel is seen throughout the Bible in the color of red because of the Lamb of God's blood shed for a sinner. Red is the scarlet thread that is interwoven throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, all the way through. So he said, bring me red or scarlet linen. Then he said, bring white, the color of righteousness. The psalmist wrote this. He says, wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. White, righteousness. John wrote in Revelation, he said, I saw them standing before the throne and before the Lamb, arrayed in white robes. So God said, bring me scarlet or red and bring me white. Then he said, bring me blue, symbolic of the heavenly realm. Little different. Ezekiel wrote, and above the expanse over their heads there was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a blue sapphire. And seated above the likeness of the throne was a likeness with a human appearance. Blue will also be one of the dominant colors in the new Jerusalem that descends down from heaven. Blue is symbolic of heavenly things. The color gold, now we were talking about the metallic gold. Now we're talking about the color of gold. The glory of God. It goes right along with what we said about gold anyway. Peter wrote, the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold. See, you can't get more precious than that. Gold is the top. That perishes through it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor to the revelation of Jesus Christ. The color purple, the color of royalty. Do you know how they make the color purple in those days? Do you remember somewhere in the New Testament story about Lydia, the maker of purple dye? You get it from some type of shell that's in the ocean. That's why it's so expensive. It's hard to get. Purple dye was made from a shell that they get out of the ocean, so it was very expensive. So only royalty wore that color. So the color purple, royalty. Purple is known to be worn only by kings because extracting the color from a certain seashell is very expensive, and so only royalty or the very rich wore purple. But God included the color purple when he said, bring these. On the tabernacle gate, the curtain of the gate was made of blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine linen. Okay, before I read this next one, I have a question. And I have a rule. I don't call on somebody in the class and ask you a question unless I've got your permission before. I don't call on you to read unless I get your permission before. And I don't call anybody to stand up and pray unless I ask you for class. So before class, I asked Steve if I could call on him. But I didn't tell him what the question was going to be.
Oh, dear.
And he just said, oh, yeah, you can call on me anytime. So I don't want anybody to think, oh, no, he's calling on people now. No, I'm not. I said, Steve, here it is. Opinion. If you are God and you're out by the Sinai desert and you decided, I'm going to go down there and live with those people, what kind of throne, what kind of home would you want them to build you?
If I was God and went down on there,
Mm-hmm.
I would say just a regular, simple home. I mean, Jesus was born in a manger,
Yeah.
so I would say nothing extravagant.
Oh, wow. Did y'all expect that answer?
No.
Okay, now we'll change it. What if you're God and you're looking down at the earth today and you say, you know, it's time for me to go down there and live among my people. Prepare me a home, prepare me a throne, a location. Two-part question. Where and what would you build? What would it look like?
Jerusalem,
Jerusalem, good,
and a very elaborate palace.
very elaborate palace. So both of these things, pretty much what Steve said, is what happened. They're out here in the wilderness. They cannot build him an elaborate palace in the wilderness because they're going to get up and start moving, and you couldn't move it. So God said, I'm going to live among you, but you're going to build me a tabernacle. That is a portable temple that you're going to build. So that when I will live among you, I will be there, and we're going to see more detail on it. And then when you get up to go, you put it all together, and you move it, and you reset it up later on, and I will go with you. So that's what we're looking at now, because he can't build the elaborate thing that needs to be built. So we're down at the foot of the Mount Sinai, and he's telling them, bring all these materials. Then he's going to tell you what to do with all these materials. Now, he said in that first verse that onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and the breastplate. So I thought we might need to take a look at that. And onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and the breastplate. Now, this was the best photo I could find to show you. The ephod, it's not that that's a breastplate up there. That arrow is trying to point at the apron. Y'all see the apron, the color apron? That's called the ephod. Only the priest, the high priest, wears that. Okay? So the second piece was the breastplate. And that's what it looks like. What do you notice about the breastplate?
It's got names on it.
Got names on it. Every stone is different. Every gem. So, who are these names? Who are these people in there? I can't call anybody by name because I said I don't do that.
12 tribes.
12 tribes. Well, I see in the lower left-hand corner and next to it, I see Manasseh on the bottom and Ephraim. And they are not one of the 12 tribe members. Who are they? Those are the two sons of Joseph. So when they got to this point in the breastplate later on, not right there, I couldn't find one right then, but when they moved later on, they used, instead of Joseph, they added his two sons. And when they get to the promised land, you'll find that they had lands for Ephraim and Manasseh, and that represented Joseph. Okay, but if I added those two, why isn't there 13? I took one off, Joseph, I added two, why isn't there 13? That means we got another one missing. Now, this plate is after they moved to the promised land. I couldn't find a picture of the other. And the reason is they took the tribe of Dan off of it. What do you remember about the tribe of Dan?
Because he didn't follow instructions.
They did not follow instructions, exactly right. What were the instructions?
Kill everybody and all the animals.
Yeah, kill them all and take the land. Where did they fail?
He liked them. They were nice.
Gaza Strip. They did not take the Gaza Strip. That was appointed that part of their land. And so later they took that stone out for Dan. So now you're back to 12 when you put these two on. That's a breastplate. You know what? It doesn't have a whole lot of meaning for us today. That's Jewish stuff. But since we're reading these scriptures, I just thought you might like to see some of that. And the fact that the tribe of Dan, they went over and saw all the Philistines along the Mediterranean coast there. They were afraid of the Philistines. They wouldn't take it. They took a little bit of land right beside it. That's where Samson was born. Remember, he would go over to the Philistines and come back, and he dealt with them. But that whole strip went down, and that's the Gaza Strip today, because Dan didn't take what he was supposed to. Look what's happening today, just because he didn't do what he's supposed to. I just thought that if you read it, when I'm doing the lesson, somebody will say, "What's an ephod?" You know, so what's the breastplate? Okay, it's a garment and then a plate worn by the high priest only. that was the, I already asked these questions, so we'll move on. Okay, then God continues, says, talking to Moses, then have them make a sanctuary for me. And I will what? I will dwell among them. That's why this is being done. Make this tabernacle and all of its furnishings any way you want to. Exactly like the pattern I'll show you. And boy, he gives exact details. But then the scripture he changes and he begins giving them the instructions for building the Ark of the Covenant first. And then he goes and talks about the tabernacle. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is this Ark of the Covenant, the instructions, and he tells them how to build it. How big do you think that thing is? Anybody?
Nobody knows.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he tells them exactly.
He knows.
Oh
He
yeah.
knows.
I almost called you and told you to bring a tape measure for me. I was going to show people exactly. But when you see pictures and you see when they were in crossing Jericho into the Promised Land, you know, they marched the Ark of the Covenant across first, and it looks so huge, but you're going to be surprised at the size of it. But God gives every detail on there. Now, he said, have them make an ark of acacia wood. So he tells them exactly what kind of wood to use. My guess is that it was probably the most common wood in that area. I don't think he would ask them to build one of acacia wood if they didn't have those kind of trees right there. He said, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits tall. Okay, he just told you how big it is. How big is a cubit? A cubit is from here to here. That was the measurement they used. That's a cubit. So that's why you read about cubits. Well, how many inches is that from here to here? Well,
24.
24. Oh, you're a little high there.
18.
Well,
18 is what they finally agreed on in modern days to use. But Sandra puts hers up, it's 16. I put mine up, it's 17. So you see, a cubit, yeah, I know, you don't have 18 inches. Yeah. But that's what they did. They settled on a number of cubits. But is God specific as to what size it's supposed to be?
Yes.
Exactly, yes. Now, notice at the top right, this is what the NIV reads. I went to find another translation that had already converted the cubits to inches. It's a new translation language, I think, a new language translation. He said, have the people make an ark of acacia wood about, get ahead of myself. I tried to find a picture. I went through hundreds of pictures to find the one that I thought was close to it. And I got this one because I could do it and not have a white background. So it looks better. But it's something wrong with that picture. Big time. We just read about it. Where are those poles supposed to be?
Location.
Down at the bottom by the feet, aren't they? I had a picture of it like that, but it didn't have big old white background and stuff, and it wouldn't blend in. So these are just pictures of what people think. Other than that, it looks pretty good. But he said, then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Does it look like those poles are covered with gold? So we often see pictures. It's so hard to find the right one and just right. So I picked the best one I can. I'll tell you the two things that's not right about it. Insert the poles in the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Is he being specific? Wow. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law which I will give you. And he hadn't given them to them yet. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long. Well, that would cover the top. And 1.5 cubits inside. And make 2 cherubims hammered out of gold at the ends of the cover. Now he's making a cover for the Ark of the Covenant. It's a separate piece. And as you read, watch for it. But that when he makes the cherubims, they're supposed to be in one piece of gold all the way through that lid. They're not attached separately. Watch for it. Make one cherubim on one end and the second cherubim on the other end. Make the cherubim of one piece with the cover at the two ends. Detailed. This is how he wants it built. He's telling them, Steve, exactly how he wants them to build, where he's going to reside.
Well, how much must this thing weigh for 4 people to carry?
It was estimated at just a little over 500 pounds.
For 4 people to carry all that distance?
500 pounds. And the 2 tablets
They
of
were
stuff.
stronger than I am.
Yeah.
250 pound men.
Gotta have some strong people.
I hope.
But you can't touch it. You're going to touch the
That's
poles.
right, yeah.
The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward and overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking towards the cover. So that part of it looks, fairly realistic up there. Place the cover on top of the ark, and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant laws that I will give you. He hasn't given them yet. He hasn't come down with Moses hadn't come down with them yet. There above the cover, between the 2 cherubims that cover the Ark of the Covenant, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites. So where is he going to reside? Where is God going to reside? They call it the mercy seat between the 2 cherubims. That blank space right there, that's where God's going to reside among his people. That's what he told them to build. Build that for me. He didn't say, make one of these big old chairs that are gold, and make a crown. I'll sit on the big chair like kings do. No. This is what he wanted. Now that we read God's instructions for the building of the Ark of the Covenant, I'm going to let you see it in a little quick video, the same thing again. It just kind of refreshes our mind. Oh, that's you doing the tabernacle.
Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they take an offering for me. From every one whose heart makes him willing, you shall take my offering.
That's the scriptures we just
This
read.
is the offering which you shall take from them: gold, silver, brass, blue, purple, scarlet, fine linen, goat's hair, ram skin dyed red, sea cow hides, shittim wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the sweet incense, gemstones and stones to be set for the ephod and for the breastplate. Let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them, according to all that I show you, the pattern of the tent and the pattern of all its furniture, even so you shall make it. They shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits and a half shall be its length, a cubit and a half its breadth,
Too tall.
and a cubit and a half
Way
its
too
height.
tall.
You shall overlay it with pure gold. Inside and outside you shall overlay it, and you shall make a molding of gold around it. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them on its 4 feet.
That's
2
right.
rings on the one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side of it. You shall make poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And you shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry the ark
Gold.
by them. The poles shall remain in the rings of the ark, they shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony that I shall give you.
That's the 10 Commandments. There they are.
You shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2 cubits and a half shall be its length, and a cubit and a half its breadth. Make 1 cherub on the one end, and 1 cherub on the other end. 1 piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its 2 ends. The cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings, their faces one to another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubim be. And you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel.
That's his throne. That's where he meets with his people. So now you kind of have an understanding of how God built it. Now, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. It's probably coming up with some more slides. But today, where is that Ark of the Covenant?
No one knows.
Y'all don't know?
It's
You
lost.
know?
Some people think they know.
That's a good answer. Some people think they do. All we have is our guess right now, but in 586 BC, when the Babylonians came over and the southern kingdom of Judah, they raided it and they took all the stuff out of the temple. And they made a list of it. They always do, the kings of all the stuff though. And on that list, they found that the Ark of the Covenant was not on there. The lampstands and all the other things that are in there, they found them all listed, but not the Ark of the Covenant. So that's where it ends, right there, 586 BC. It's been hidden somewhere. Somebody knows somewhere, but why is that so important, though? Before the Antichrist can come, they're going to have that Ark of the Covenant and be back into having sacrifices again, because it says when the Antichrist comes, after 3.5 years that are good, then he goes down into the temple where the Ark is, and he goes in and he makes an abomination of desolation, which could mean he slaughtered a pig or something else. But that Ark of the Covenant is going to be there, have to be there to have the full services that they perform there. And that's going to come after 3.5 years in tribulation. So somewhere that thing's going to pop back up. Now, the Jews are getting ready for that already. When you open it up and you start the sacrifices again, the first thing you have to do is you have to sacrifice a red heifer without spot or blemish. Those are very, very rare. But they found, this is probably last year, 5 of them in Texas. And they've shipped all 5 of them to Jerusalem. And they're keeping them now. And they got them put aside over there. And that's factual. They got all the evidence. And they're trying to get ready. But somewhere this Ark of the Covenant's got to come back up. That's the interesting part. You remember there's a movie that kind of did a takeoff of it. What was it called? Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, that guy, he's looking for it. He's hunting that Ark of the Covenant. You know, and David said, right, there's a lot of people that'll say, oh, we know where it's down in Ethiopia, and they got to move it. You don't know. God knows, and a handful of people know, of Jewish people. So that's the Ark of the Covenant, and that's what the Jews are waiting for, the time to bring it back up and start the sacrifices again. Don't know when that'll be. Now, I just told you in 586 BC, when it was taken, these are the same things I was saying. Today, the Jews are still waiting for Messiah. You notice I didn't put the word "the" in front of Messiah? Do you know Jews do that? They don't put the word, they say Messiah. When the Messiah comes. They don't say when the Messiah, they say when Messiah. So I guess I'm getting Jewish on it, I don't know. Okay, now I'm going to skip over the next few verses which talk about the table, the lampstands, and some of these things. And I want to go right to the building of the tabernacle. If we don't finish at 10:30, we're going to continue it next Sunday, because I want you to see, because when this tabernacle is built with all these instructions, and then later on, King David is sitting in his big old palace, and he says, you know what, I'm living in this big fancy palace, and God resides in a tent. A tent! And David said, I need to build a big temple. And the temple has to fit the mold of the directions of the tabernacle. So the tabernacle is the framework of the way the temple is to be built. So that's why the tabernacle is kind of important. We don't have to know all the details, but I want you to know the general. God said, make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen, blue, purple, scarlet yarn, with cherubims woven into them by a skilled worker. Very demanding. All the curtains are to be the same size, 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, every detail. Join 5 of the curtains together, and do the same thing with the other 5. Make loops of the blue material along the edge and the curtain on one set, and do the same with the curtain on the other set. Make 50 loops on one curtain and 50 loops on the other end of the curtain, and make the sets with the loops opposite each other. Then make 50 gold clasps and use them to fasten the curtains together, so that the tabernacle is a unit that can also be taken apart when they travel. I could continue reading about the making of the walls, how they did that, so many poles and so many stakes and so many brass rings or silver rings, so many sections and all, but I want you to see and hear it. It'll make more sense than me reading all that. This is good.
And thou shalt make the court of the tabernacle for the south side southward. There shall be hangings for the court of fine twined linen, of 100 cubits long for one side, and the 20 pillars thereof, and their 20 sockets shall be of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. And likewise for the north side in length, there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and his 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And for the breadth of the court on the west side shall be hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. And the breadth of the court on the east side eastward shall be 50 cubits. The hangings of one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits.
Oh, I didn't mean to back it up. Shit.
You hit the wrong button.
Can't do it. It's going to be 75 inches across the front and 150 in depth.
Feet.
You probably start over. Yeah.
And thou shalt make the court of the tabernacle for the south side southward. There shall be hangings for the court of fine twined linen, of 100 cubits long for one side, and the 20 pillars thereof, and their 20 sockets shall be of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets shall be of silver. And likewise for the north side in length, there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and his 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of brass.
That's north.
The
Which
hooks
way
of
is
the
it going
pillars
to
and
face?
their fillets of silver.
Faced east.
And for the breadth of the court on the west side
There's
shall
the
be
back side.
hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. And the breadth of the court on the east side eastward shall be 50 cubits. The hangings of one side of the gate shall be 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And on the other side shall be hangings 15 cubits.
Isn't that interesting?
Their
how they do in the
pillars
front?
3, and their sockets 3. And for the gate of the court shall be an hanging of 20 cubits, of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen, wrought with needlework. And their pillars shall be 4, and their sockets 4. All the pillars round about the court shall be filleted with silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets of brass. And the length of the court shall be 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 everywhere, and the height 5 cubits of fine twined linen, and their sockets of brass. All the vessels of the tabernacle in all the service thereof, and all the pins thereof, and all the pins of the court
All
shall
those
be of
stakes
brass.
in the ground. Brass. Okay, you see that I could read all that, but we would be confused trying to read it, but you could see it there pretty good. 75 foot deep, and its across was 75 across and 150 foot deep. Now, I've got this picture out, and it was the best one I could find on here. And let's see if I can put these marked. We call this the outer court. When they walk in through that gate, which the gate is the purple and blue and linen stuff, they come in. They're in the outer court. That's the only place the people can go. Because then we have what they call the tent, and it covers two things. It covers the holy place and the Holy of Holies. This is called the holy place. Only the priest can go in here. Only. And then in the back side of it, the Ark of the Covenant is back there. The priest, the high priest, is the only one that can go back there. And he can only go back there one time a year. And that's on what they call the Day of Atonement. So one time a year, they all bring their sacrifices, which we'll talk about. They take place in that outer court out there. We can see the brazen altar right by the gate. They offer their sacrifices. And when they're all done, then the priest, the high priest, he offers one lamb. He brings two lambs, and he offers one as a sacrifice. He takes the and it's a goat, and they send him out into the wilderness to go, and that's supposed to represent carrying away all the sins of the people of Israel carried out. What do they call that goat today? Scapegoat. That's where they got that name from. But that was on the Day of Atonement, one time a year. Now the priest has to go into the Holy of Holies. There is a veil that separates them right here, and there's all kinds of, where did it go? It didn't go. Hold on. I thought I put a circle around it. But see right here it says veil. Right here it separates the Holy of Holies from the holy place. So the priest has to go back there and see if God will accept the offering and take away the sins of all the people. Now when he goes back there, they put bells on the bottom of his big old robe. So if they hear the tinkling of bells, they know he's walking around, he's still alive. Because nobody can go in there. Well, what if he dies back there? What if God says no and he kills him? Nobody else can go in there. You're right. They tie a rope around his ankle and it sticks under the veil. See, Sandra knows. Then they pull that rope and pull him out. Now, there's nothing in history that tells us that they've ever had to pull one out, but that was part of it. So it's not that this is important for you and I today, but as we read and study, God has specifics on how he wants things done. So that's what it is. The brazen altar up the front, that was the first thing. We'll just touch on some of these. The brazen altar was where the Israelites sacrificed their animals to atone for their sins. It was made of acacia wood, probably the only thing that was growing out there, and overlaid with bronze, not silver, not gold. The altar was square shaped, measuring 7.5 feet by 4.5 feet high. The horns, I like this interesting, the horns on the corners of the altars were represented God's power. The animals would have been tied to the horns before the sacrifices. Just whatever that means. The next item in there is called the laver. The bronze laver was a wash basin used by the priest in the tabernacle where they cleanse their hands and feet. It was made from bronze mirrors of the women's in the assembly. I don't know what that means. It was made from bronze mirrors. Anybody know what a bronze mirror is? I should have researched it, I guess. Somebody look it up and come tell me next Sunday.
Highly polished bronze. Maybe.
I'm thinking it's something along that line. They didn't have the type of glass mirrors that we have. Must be something like that. But they wanted that brought, so they make that. The priests would wash their hands and feet with water from it before entering the holy place so that they would not die. The priest could go in the holy place, but not where that veil is. That veil separates God from the people. The only way you could reach God was through a high priest. Now I'm going to get ahead of myself. That veil, they describe how thick it was. Some say that it could be as thick as 4 inches. That veil separated God from the people except for one high priest. When Jesus died on the cross, that veil split in two. Everybody now has access to God. We're no longer, He's open to everybody. That's what that meant when Jesus died. The veil was rent. And here's these priests seeing that veil rent, knowing that they're not allowed to go back there, not understanding who Jesus was. Couldn't understand that. So now then, we don't have to go to a high priest and say, would you see if God would forgive me my sins? We have direct access to God because that veil was torn in half. Okay, so there's only 2 things in the outer court. We've talked about them. Inside the holy place, there was 3 things. The golden candlestick stand, also known as the menorah. It was a solid gold, cylindrical in form, 7-branch, oil-burning lamp used in the tabernacle. The practical function of the golden lampstand was to get light in the holy place. Because this chamber had no windows, it's a tent, the lampstand was the only source of light, and it had to stay lit all the time. And remember earlier we read it said bring oil for the lamps. The altar of incense, which is inside the holy place, is a piece of furniture in the holy place, and it was used to burn incense, fragrant incense. The primary purpose of the altar of incense was to burn fragrant incense, which represented the prayers and worship of the Israelites. The rising smoke was seen as a symbol of communication with God. The act of offering incense was a crucial part of daily ritual performed by the priest of the tabernacles, because the people could not go in the holy place where the people were, where the priests were. And then there was a table of the shewbread or showbread, and it was an important piece of furniture inside the holy place. It was made of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold. Atop the table of the showbread were gold plates. Aaron and his son, Aaron was the first high priest, and their sons placed 12 loaves of bread made from fine flour. The loaves of bread were considered holy, an offering before the presence of God, and it could be eaten only by the priest. Each week on the Sabbath, the priest consumed the old bread and replaced it with fresh loaves supplied by the people. So it lasted a week. So that's the only 3 items that's in the holy place where the priest can go. Then we talked about the veil already. I'm going to skip that since I talked about it. God was very specific about the tabernacle was how to be built. The measurements, types of fabric, kinds of wood, when to use gold, silver, brass. God said He would reside among the Israelites in the Holy of Holies on the top of the mercy seat, above the ark and between the seraphim, that should have been cherubims. But where does God reside today? The Ark of the Covenant is in hiding. God will reside. Will God reside with His people again? Yes, He will. Scripture tells us that one day God will descend with a new earth, a new Jerusalem, and He will reside among His people. You picked Jerusalem, you picked right. Scripture says that's where He's coming next. In Revelation, John said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no longer any sea, and I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and He will dwell with them, and they will be His people, and God Himself will be with the people. God is not residing with us today. God resides in heaven. Only in spirit does He reside through the Holy Spirit. But there will be a day that we will all come back after we've gone to heaven. We'll come back down to this new place that God has fed. One day, God will live among us. And the question is, are we ready? Do we have time for it? Next Sunday, the word is broken. Broken. Think about it. The Ten Commandments, broken. But what about the people? They're broken. God's got it dealing with the broken people. That's next Sunday. Do we have time for one song?
Sure.
You can cut that off if you want to.